and thank you for tuning in. My name is Natalie Raymond with Multi-Business Solutions. Multi-Business Solutions is based out of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and we provide accounting, bookkeeping, human resources, and business consulting for small to mid-sized businesses. We primarily support clients in the North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota states. However, we do have clients nationwide and can help anybody that is needing some help in those areas. We are so excited to be shooting the last of our 4-part series with the Pelican Rapids City and many other resources that help to support this project. We talked in the first video that we did about working remotely and tips and tricks if this was new to you and you had to start doing this as an employer and an employee due to the COVID-19 pandemic that we're currently in. In the second video, we talked about health and physical safety. And in Minnesota, a lot of businesses were required to close if they were not essential. And so now they have been allowed or starting to be allowed to open up slowly, hopefully more so in the next few weeks. And so there's some tips there on how to consider employee safety, customer safety as you're looking to reopen. If you were never closed, if you're in a state where the business was not required to close, there's still some good tips for you there as well to consider. In the third video, Dawn Finn and I talked about mental health and how to protect that during these crisis times. Dawn is with the Welcome Place in Pelican Rapids, and she also has a life coaching business. And we had just a great conversation talking about life and how you can navigate it and how you can keep your thoughts headed in the right direction and keep them positive to help protect your mental health. So those 3 videos before, if you didn't get a chance to see them, we'd encourage you to go ahead and check them out. Today's video is going to talk about the biggest mistakes that employees and employers can make. And this is not as specific to the COVID-19 pandemic. These are just some general things that, as I was thinking about my time as an employee and my time as a manager, supervisor, managing people, some things that came up and just wanted to share with you that hopefully can help you to avoid these same mistakes. Again, whether you're in the management role, leadership role, or whether you're sitting in the desk or on the job site as an employee, we want you to have success. And so here's some things, some mistakes that you should try to avoid at all cost. So the first one, without further ado, is from the employee perspective. And it's really just talking about excessive absenteeism and focus this on those unexcused or those unplanned absences. For employers, most of the time they realize that there's going to be some times that employees are going to have to be gone from the job. We would love it if our employees were always at work every day, never needed a day off, never needed to take a kid to the dentist, never needed to make their own, health, physical appointment and always were there. But in reality, our employees are people and they have lives. And so sometimes those lives are going to require them to be gone. And most of the time, this is not a huge deal if it can be scheduled and planned. However, the issue comes up when it's absences that are not planned and they, again, just become excessive. And I'm not going to define excessive because that might be different depending on the job or the industry that you're in. But if it becomes where it's a burden for the employer, it's excessive. So we hope that most of the employers that we work with or that we talk to have a policy, have an employee handbook that addresses how many times an employee can be gone during the year, what is acceptable. Are those absences going to be paid or not paid? How do you request that time off? Is there a system that they put them into? Is there an email that's sent, a phone call that's made? What's the process? And then if they get sick that morning or they have a kid that's sick that morning and they can't make it to work for the day and it wasn't planned, how do they notify? Who do they get a hold of? Is there a certain chain that they have to follow? If you're an organization with a lot of employees, do they call the HR manager or do they call their direct supervisor? How soon in the morning do they get a hold of them? So having a policy in place is great. And then just trying to, again, if you notice as the employer that these absences are creeping up and they are becoming an issue, that you're having a conversation with the employee about them. And employee, again, that you realize that when you're gone from work, it creates a burden for your employer and having to find somebody else to do the job. Or in the case of some small employers, maybe there is no one else that can do the job. And so the work is going to suffer when you're not there. Not as many hands to do the work is probably going to cause some issues. So trying whenever possible to realize that it's important that you're at work and that you're limiting those unplanned absences, and that you're being considerate and whenever possible. The second mistake I'm going to talk about is from the employer side, and it's really the failure to address performance issues as they occur in your employees. And so we just talked about the mistake that an employee can make with being excessively absent, unplanned absences, and the burden that that can create for an employer. As that employer, if you don't address that, it's going to create real problems. And that's just one thing that could be an issue that you need to address. There's a lot of things that could come up. It could be the quality of the work. It could be the quantity of the work that's getting done. It could be something more with attitude, or things that are being said around the office or on the job site that you need to address. And it's your job as the boss, as the manager, as a supervisor, to address those things and have those difficult conversations. And if you don't do it, it's just going to cause problems. There's a quote from Todd Whitaker that says, "The culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate." I believe that's true and something to keep in mind. I also like the idea that, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So if you have a weak link and you are not handling that and addressing that, that is a mistake, and that's going to cause problems. We do hope that most people that are in a management, supervisor, owner, leader position, that they do realize that, not everybody, again, is perfect. There's going to be issues that come up. And if you coach that and coach it, effectively and in a timely manner, hopefully a lot of times you can turn that behavior around. You can create a better employee in some cases that can become more loyal to you, depending on how that's handled and how that's addressed. But know that in some cases, even the best coaching is not going to turn the behavior around. And in some cases, if you're not under contract, you're in a right to work state, you may need to proceed with termination. And sometimes that is the best thing to do. It's hard. And if you haven't had to do it before, you haven't had to do it very often, it's very difficult. But speaking from experience, I can say that not taking action when I should have was probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my career as a manager to this point. And so just know that as an employer, you do need to address those things. That's part of your responsibility. And that failure to do so is one of the biggest mistakes I believe that you can make. On the employee side, one of the other mistakes I'm going to talk about is theft. And I really hope that everyone watching this, that as an employee, that you have never considered or would even think about any theft from the company. But unfortunately, the statistics show us that about 10% of people will commit theft from their company. 10% never would, but 80% are in that middle or gray area where they could be persuaded to if the right situation came along, or without proper discouragement, I would say. So theft is defined in the Business Practical Knowledge website as stealing, use, or misuse of an employer's asset without permission. And there's a lot of things that this could apply to. Things that can be stolen from a company might include money. That's pretty obvious. It could also be time, which time theft is a very real thing, and it's a very real problem. It might be, when we talk about time theft, punching in early when you're not actually working, punching out late at the end of the day when you're not actually working, staying punched in over a lunch hour when you're not working, having, depending on what your system is for punching, having a buddy punch you in when you're not there, things like that. So time theft can also be very real. Supplies, which might be, if you're in office, it's just a stapler. Or it might be, if you're in a restaurant, food or alcohol might be something that you could also steal from your company. Company property is something that can be taken. That might be a personal computer, laptop, iPad. In some cases, this might not happen until an employee is supposed to be leaving and then those things mysteriously disappear, but it can be while an employee is still present. And depending on the size of the company, they just hope that they won't get caught. Another thing that can be stolen is information or proprietary company secrets, customer information, things that are confidential like that. And again, if you're an employee and you get caught in this, it will result in immediate termination from your employer. And really, it's always wrong. There's no excuse or justification for it that will cover it. You can't try to tell yourself that, well, I didn't get that raise I was supposed to get or that I deserve, and so therefore the company owes me this, or something along the line of my health insurance costs went up and I can't afford an extra $500 a month. So I'm just going to take this other thing from the company to help cover for it and help make me pay. Again, theft from your employer is always wrong. It's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. And I strongly encourage you to just remain honest and ethical in all of the things that you do with your employer. And that will get you so much further in life. The last tip that we have for a mistake, I guess, for an employer, as I was thinking about this, again, there's a lot of different things that might come to mind, but I just wanted to sum it all up in a lack of leadership. I think that there's a hard time for people to really be leaders. There can be people that get the title, whether it's supervisor, manager, team lead. They get put in a place of leadership, but maybe it's just because their technical skills were strong and they don't really have the qualities the strength that it takes to be a leader. When you run a business or you're the CEO, it comes with a lot of demands, and you have to make sure that you have enough cash in the bank to run the business, that you can make payroll, that your sales are high enough. There's a lot of demands on you. But if you have employees as well, then you have an obligation to be a leader to them. There's a lot of qualities you can think about when it comes to what good leaders are. There's a lot of books, there's a lot of resources out there in what being a good leader is. And so some of the things that I just think about when I think about like qualities of a poor leader, one, it would be like lack of confidence or weak or no confidence. You have to have strong confidence and belief in yourself as a leader. Another one is inability to make decisions, especially during this pandemic that we're in. I've seen and heard from some leaders that kind of weigh back and forth between what's the right thing to do. I don't want to be, perceived as not being open and fair, so then I don't do anything and I don't know what to do. So really just know that a lack of decision making is a quality of poor leaders, and really good decision making, strong decision making is a quality of good leadership. Another issue or lack of leadership can show through when you have a lack of empathy or concern for your employees. Another thing is lack of resilience. In these times, especially if you're a good leader, you have to be resilient. You have to be able to bounce back from whatever crisis that we're currently going through, whatever changes you need to make to your business. Maybe the model needs to shift and it's not what it was yesterday, but it's important for good leaders to be resilient. Another thing is when leaders fail to recognize the contributions of others. That's a quality of poor leadership. Or failing to recognize praising other people for their success, and know that your employees need both public and private praise, and it's a quality of a good leader that you can give this. A lot of people are looking for recognition, appreciation, and I've talked to people that have been in other careers and they've done maybe some great things, and they would have stayed there and they would have kept going and they would have done more for the organization if only somebody had told them thank you, if only somebody had told them, I recognize and appreciate what you're doing. So don't underestimate the power of thank you for your people, and don't underestimate the power of just recognizing what they're going through. And that's a quality of really good leadership. Know that if you're going to be a leader, it means often putting aside the I for the we. And I remember a manager I had when I was really young, just starting out, and his advice to me was, when I introduce myself to other people and I have an employee there with me, he said, don't ever say like, this person works for me, but always say, this person works with me. And it's really important to recognize that these people, they aren't there to work for you, they're there to work with you. And that's an example of a good leader. And I try to always remember that and put that into place. So again, these are just a few ideas that we had on some mistakes that you can make if you're an employer or an employee. We understand that there's so many challenges that are out there today that businesses are facing, that individuals are facing. And if you've been laid off from a job, we feel for you. And we wish you success in finding something new. And if you need any help, if you're a business that is struggling with their accounting or bookkeeping or their HR, their people, if you need any help, please reach out to us. We would love to try to help businesses to grow stronger. We truly believe that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. And we just want to see as many as possible continue to strive and to grow even during these challenging times. So again, thank you so much. We wish you all the best of luck. And please reach out if you need anything. Thank you.